An elderly woman discovers that the girl who steals food from her diner is struggling to survive on the streets with her younger brother. Determined to help them, she makes a surprising discovery about the girl's true identity. It was just another quiet afternoon at Donna Clara's small diner. Sunlight streamed through the storefront, illuminating the simple wooden tables, always kept impeccably clean. Clara, her gray hair pinned neatly in a low bun, was busy counting inventory behind the counter. This daily ritual involved counting bread, organizing sandwiches, and preparing drinks for customers. It was her routine, and she took pride in the simplicity and warmth her diner exuded. The diner, located in a modest neighborhood of the city, was more than just a place to meet. It was a refuge where people could forget their problems for a few minutes while enjoying fresh coffee or a quick meal. Clara, who had dedicated nearly her entire life to the diner, knew each customer by name and cherished the trust she had built over the years. But that day, something different was about to unfold. As Clara arranged sandwiches in the display case, her gaze caught a figure in the corner of the diner. It was a small, ragged girl with unkempt brown hair and a dirty face, leaning against the wall with her eyes fixed on the food. She looked hesitant, as if carefully analyzing Clara's movements and those of the few customers present. Clara observed the girl from a distance, intrigued. She had seen street children around her diner before, but something about this girl made her hesitate before taking any action. No more than 8 years old, the girl wore clothes that seemed salvaged from the trash, an oversized t-shirt and pants torn at the knees. Her large, hungry eyes shone with a sorrow that broke Clara's heart. What happened next was so swift that Clara barely had time to react. After a brief moment of hesitation, the girl approached the display case, ensuring Clara was busy with another customer. In one quick motion, she snatched a sandwich wrapped in paper and bolted out the door like lightning. Clara stood still, taken aback by the girl's boldness. She knew she could chase after her and call for help to stop the theft, but something restrained her. Instead, she stared at the open door, feeling a growing unease within her. The image of the dirty, desperate child lingered in her mind. Who was she, and why was she so hungry that she would resort to stealing food? Clara felt compelled to find out more. Without a second thought, Clara grabbed her bag and left the diner, leaving one of the employees in charge. The afternoon sun was warm, and Clara squinted against the brightness as she scanned the busy street. The girl was a few meters ahead, weaving through the crowd of hurried pedestrians. Clara followed from a distance, uncertain of her intentions but driven by an overwhelming desire to understand the situation. As she walked, Clara observed the fragile figure of the girl in the distance. Her steps were quick, as if she were accustomed to fleeing. The girl crossed a bustling avenue and ducked into a narrow alley. Clara hesitated for a moment, but was overtaken by her maternal instinct. There was something in the girl's hurried movements that stirred a protective feeling within her. The alley was dark and grimy, filled with piles of trash and the stench of spoiled food. Clara entered cautiously, listening for quiet voices as she approached. Turning a corner, she spotted the girl sitting on the ground, devouring the sandwich with dirty hands. Beside her sat a younger boy, probably around 5 years old, gazing up at his sister with wide, hungry eyes. Clara froze. The sight before her shattered her heart. The girl hadn't stolen the sandwich just for herself, but to feed her little brother. They both looked so fragile and abandoned that Clara felt an overwhelming surge of compassion. She remembered her own children, now adults, who had never faced such hardship. In that moment, she knew she couldn't just walk away. But what could she do? How could she approach the children without frightening them? Clara took a deep breath and stepped forward, knowing she needed to tread carefully. "Dear," Clara said softly, "I don't want to scare you. I just want to help." The girl, Sophia, widened her eyes and instinctively shielded her brother with her body. Clara raised her hands, signaling that she meant no harm. "I saw you in my diner," Clara continued. You can take more food if you want. I just want to know if you're okay." Sophia hesitated, studying Clara with suspicion. Clara edged closer, maintaining a calm tone. "I know you're taking care of him," she said, gesturing toward the boy, who was now watching Clara with curiosity. "It must be very difficult, right?" Gradually, Sophia's tense shoulders began to relax. The evident hunger in her eyes, coupled with Clara's kindness, allowed her to lower her guard, at least for the moment. She didn't respond verbally, but didn't push Clara away either, which was a small victory. "You can come with me," Clara said, offering an encouraging smile. "We'll get something to eat, and if you'd like, you can tell me your story. I promise I won't hurt you." Though Sophia agreed to follow her, a heavy silence hung in the air. The girl didn't speak during the walk back to the diner, and the boy, holding her hand, remained quiet as well. Their footsteps echoed in the narrow streets while Clara's mind raced with thoughts. Upon arriving at the diner, Clara invited them to sit at one of the tables in the back. The place was nearly empty as the afternoon rush had subsided. She went to the counter and prepared 2 bowls of hot soup and fresh bread, placing them in front of the children. Sophia eyed the food warily, while the boy, already famished, began to eat. "You can have as much as you want. You must be hungry," Clara said gently. Sophia hesitated for a few more seconds before finally picking up the spoon and starting to eat, still keeping an eye on Clara. It was clear that despite her young age, the girl had learned to be cautious around strangers. Clara sat across from them, watching in silence as they ate, each spoonful echoing the warmth of compassion that filled her heart. Sophia appeared to relax a little, while the boy remained blissfully unaware of the tension, enthusiastically devouring his soup. "What's your name, dear?" Clara asked after a few moments of silence. Sophia hesitated, looking up. "Sophia," she replied, her voice low and hoarse. "And your little brother?" Clara inquired, gesturing toward the boy. "His name is Gabriel," she said, smiling gently as she attempted to connect with them. "How old are you?" Sophia wiped her mouth with the sleeve of her shirt, glancing at her brother before responding, "I'm 8, he's 5. Clara nodded, feeling the weight of their conversation. It was unusual for such young children to be alone on the streets, and Sophia's presence raised even more questions. "Where are your parents?" The question escaped Clara's lips before she could stop herself. Instantly, Sophia lowered her gaze to the bowl of soup, gripping the spoon tightly. Her expression turned serious, as if that simple question had reopened a wound too painful to touch. Clara realized she had broached a sensitive subject, but Sophia's look had already given her the answer she dreaded. These children were alone in the world. "I'm sorry, I didn't mean to make you uncomfortable, dear," Clara said quickly, trying to ease the atmosphere. "I just wanted to understand so I could help." Sophia stayed silent, concentrating on finishing her soup, while Gabriel, blissfully unaware of the shift in mood, looked at Clara with innocent curiosity. Clara sighed inwardly, the maternal instinct she felt when following Sophia intensified. Something inside her wouldn't allow her to ignore the situation and continue her life as if nothing had happened. She sensed a dark and painful story hidden behind their empty, silent gazes. After a few moments, Sophia finally broke the silence, still not looking up. "We don't have anyone else," she said, her voice almost a whisper. "Our parents died." The words, so simply and directly spoken, struck Clara like a blow. Her heart tightened, and she fought back tears that threatened to spill. She knew that life had already been too harsh for these children, who faced challenges far beyond their years. "I'm so sorry," Clara said sincerely. I know it must be incredibly hard for you." Sophia shrugged, as if she were accustomed to that harsh reality. Clara realized it wasn't the first time the girl had shared this story. "Where are you living now?" Clara asked, hoping not to overstep any further. Sophia glanced at Gabriel before answering, her voice even softer, "On the street." Those two words hit Clara like a punch to the gut. She was aware of the many children living on the streets, but she had never been so personally involved in their reality. She had always heard about it, always seen it from a distance, but now she stood face to face with two small human beings who suddenly felt more real than any statistic. "You have nowhere to go, no place to sleep." Sophia shook her head. Gabriel, still not grasping the gravity of the situation, was playing with the spoon in his empty bowl. Clara looked at the boy, and once again, a wave of sadness and helplessness washed over her. How could two such small children survive alone on the streets? The thought was unbearable. "I can't let you go back to the street," Clara said firmly. "Not while I can do something about it." Sophia stared at her, surprised. The distrust was still there, but it mingled with a flicker of hope, as if her words were difficult to believe. Clara, however, was resolute. Something inside her had shifted the moment she saw the children sharing that stolen sandwich in the alley. She knew she couldn't continue her life without doing something to help. "You can spend the night here," Clara said, pointing to a small door at the back of the diner. "It's not much, but there's a comfortable couch and you can rest safely." Sophia glanced at Gabriel, as if weighing the situation. She knew she couldn't trust just anyone, but Clara's kindness seemed genuine, and at that moment, her instinct to protect her brother outweighed any fear she might have felt. "It's okay," Clara reassured her, standing up. "You can take a bath and then rest. I promise nothing will happen to you." Sophia finally nodded, still hesitating, and took Gabriel's hand as they moved toward the small room at the back of the diner. As night fell over the city, Clara felt restless. Even after hours had passed, the images of Sophia and Gabriel lingered in her mind. The children lay on the sofa in the small back room of the diner, deeply asleep and utterly exhausted. The silence that enveloped the space was almost unsettling, and Clara found herself standing in the doorway, watching them with a blend of concern and tenderness. How could this have happened, she wondered. With a heavy sigh, Clara closed the door and returned to the diner's counter. As she organized items for the next day, her thoughts drifted back to when her own children were small. She remembered the struggles she faced to provide for them. There were nights when she was uncertain about what the next day would bring, but she had never felt the profound loneliness that those children must be experiencing now. The memory of her own kids stirred feelings of guilt within her. How could I have spent so much time unaware that children like Sophia and Gabriel were right under my nose? The clock neared midnight when Clara decided it was time to head home. Before leaving, she paused in front of the door to the room where the children slept. The gentle sound of their breathing brought her comfort, yet it also filled her with a weight of responsibility she wasn't sure she could bear. On her way home, Clara contemplated what to do the next day. She couldn't simply leave the children on the street again, but she felt lost about how to help them in a meaningful way. Could she involve the authorities, a shelter for children? The thought of separating them, of placing them in a cold and bureaucratic system, troubled her deeply. There was something about Sophia, the way she looked after her brother, that hinted at a bond that could not be broken, and Clara knew she couldn't do anything to drive them apart. Once home, Clara found it hard to sleep. The image of Sophia holding Gabriel close haunted her, invading her dreams with feelings of helplessness and sorrow. She pondered how those children had found themselves in such a dire situation, alone and vulnerable. They deserve a chance, she resolved, determined to take action. The following morning, Clara arrived at the diner earlier than usual. The sun was just beginning to rise when she started preparing breakfast. As she boiled water for tea and sliced fresh bread, she contemplated how best to approach Sophia. She knew the girl remained wary and that she would need to be gentle to earn her trust. A short while later, Clara heard the soft sound of footsteps. She turned to see Sophia, her hair tousled and her eyes cautious, entering the kitchen. Gabriel was still asleep, curled up on the sofa, but Sophia appeared restless, as if she had grown accustomed to waking up early to ensure nothing went wrong. "Good morning, dear," Clara said softly, trying not to startle her. "I made tea and fresh bread if you'd like some." Sophia hesitated but eventually took a seat at the table. Clara poured a cup of tea and placed it in front of her, along with the bread and butter. "Did you sleep well?" Clara asked, hoping to spark a conversation. Sophia shrugged, which Clara took as a yes, but the girl didn't meet her gaze. Despite Clara's kindness, it was clear Sophia was still unsure whether she could trust her. "I was thinking," Clara began, choosing her words carefully. "You could stay here with me for a while, at least until we figure something out. I can't imagine how hard it is for you to care for Gabriel alone, and I want to help." Sophia finally looked at Clara, her eyes reflecting a deep distrust typical of a child who had endured hardship. Yet there was also a flicker of something more, a yearning to trust someone, to find safety. "Why do you want to help?" Sophia asked, her voice low and strained. The question took Clara by surprise. She understood why Sophia might be suspicious of a stranger's intentions, but she wasn't ready for such a direct inquiry. Clara paused to collect her thoughts. "Because I know what it feels like to be alone. When I was young, I faced hardships, not like yours, but enough to understand that no one should navigate life without support." Sophia considered this, her gaze fixed on the cup of tea in her hands. The silence between them was thick with tension, yet it also carried a sense of mutual understanding. "I promise," Clara continued, "I won't do anything to hurt you or Gabriel. I just want you both to be okay. If you decide you don't want to stay, I won't force you, but while you're here, you're safe." Those words seemed to resonate with Sophia. She took a deep breath, visibly struggling to contain her emotions. Clara could see how difficult it was for her to relinquish control. For a child who had lost so much, trusting anyone was an enormous challenge. "Would you really let us stay?" Sophia asked, her voice trembling with exhaustion and fear. Clara nodded firmly. "Yes, dear. Stay as long as you need." Sophia lowered her gaze for a moment before saying, "Thank you." It was a simple expression, but it carried a weight of meaning. Clara recognized it wasn't just gratitude for the food or shelter. It was the first glimmer of trust Sophia was offering, a small opening that Clara understood she must nurture carefully. As the children finished their breakfast, Clara began plotting the next steps. She knew she would need assistance to find a lasting solution, but for now, she was resolved to be the sanctuary those children so desperately needed. Gabriel's soft laughter, now more relaxed, reminded Clara of a time when her own children used to fill their home with joy. She recalled the challenges of raising them alone after her husband's sudden passing. The constant worry about providing for them, the struggles against debt, and the exhaustion of long hours, all of it weighed heavily on her. Yet through it all, she never wavered. Her love and protective instinct guided her decisions, and she was ready to extend that same care to Sophia and Gabriel, even if her connection to them was still fresh. Sitting on a bench near the door, Clara observed the dynamic between the siblings. Sophia displayed a maturity beyond her years, always attentive to her brother, ensuring he was okay even while they played. The way she moved, constantly alert and cautious, revealed the heavy emotional burden she carried for someone so young. Clara couldn't shake that thought from her mind. She realized she couldn't solve all the world's problems, but in that moment, she was determined to change the reality for these two children. As she contemplated how to achieve that, memories of her own past began to resurface. On a cold night many years ago, Clara had found herself on the edge of despair. Her husband, Marco, had died in a car accident, leaving her alone with two small children to raise. The pain was unbearable, and she felt utterly helpless. In that moment, she considered giving up everything, but somehow she summoned the strength to carry on. Clara worked tirelessly, opening the diner with the little money she had, gradually rebuilding her life. However, the loneliness never fully disappeared. Now, seeing Sophia and Gabriel, she felt as if she were reliving parts of her own history. The urge to protect these children and give them a chance at life resonated in her heart. She understood the journey ahead would be tough, but this time, she was not fighting for herself or her children. She was fighting for two little strangers who had quickly become her new purpose. Her thoughts were interrupted by Sophia's gentle voice. "Are you okay?" the girl asked, her face a blend of curiosity and concern. Clara found it unusual to see such a small child worried about someone else, but it was evident that Sophia had been forced to mature far too quickly. Clara smiled, trying to push aside the painful memories. "Yes, dear, I was just thinking about a few things." Sophia didn't respond right away, her gaze studying Clara as if trying to understand the emotions behind that gentle face. Clara recognized that the girl was more attentive and perceptive than she let on. "Sometimes I think a lot too," Sophia said almost in a whisper while watching her brother play. "I think about when everything was different, when things were good." Clara felt a knot form in her throat. She understood exactly what Sophia meant. Before she could respond, however, Sophia continued, her voice growing firmer. I take care of Gabriel. He's all I have now." Clara nodded, acknowledging the truth in the girl's words. "And you're doing an amazing job, Sophia. Your brother is very lucky to have you." Sophia looked away, appearing a bit embarrassed by the compliment. It was clear she wasn't accustomed to receiving recognition for her efforts. Clara realized that the girl bore much more than her fragile appearance suggested. "You know," Clara began, sensing it was the right moment to share a bit of her own story. "When my children were small, I also felt alone. I lost my husband in an accident, and everything became very difficult. For a while, I didn't know how I was going to take care of them, but somehow I managed." Sophia looked up at Clara, surprised by the confession. There was something in the sincerity of the elderly woman's words that seemed to resonate with Sophia in a way few people had. "You managed?" the girl asked, as if the idea of overcoming loss was nearly unimaginable. "Yes," Clara replied, smiling gently. "It was hard, but the love I felt for them gave me strength. And I know you feel the same way about your brother. You have a strong heart, Sophia, and you're not alone." Sophia remained silent, processing Clara's words. What the elderly woman had experienced seemed to mirror her own struggles, awakening a mix of hope and fear within her. She wanted to believe Clara, but years of survival on the streets had taught Sophia to trust no one. Still, the kindness and vulnerability Clara had shared were gradually breaking down that barrier. As the afternoon progressed, Clara felt she had taken an important step toward earning Sophia's trust. With each conversation and gesture of care, the emotional distance between them shrank. But Clara knew there was still much to uncover about Sophia and Gabriel's past. That night, after closing the diner and ensuring the children were safe and fed, Clara decided she needed to take further action. She couldn't leave them there indefinitely without a plan. She would begin searching for answers, trying to understand what had happened to Sophia and Gabriel's parents, and how she could help them find a long-term solution. The following morning brought a different atmosphere. The sun rose gently on the horizon, casting a golden light through the diner's windows. Clara, already used to waking up early, was up long before Sophia and Gabriel. She prepared breakfast with more care than usual, reflecting on the words she had exchanged with Sophia the day before. Clara knew she had planted a seed of trust, but she also understood that she would need more patience and affection to nurture that trust until it blossomed. As she set the table, Clara heard timid footsteps approaching. Sophia appeared in the kitchen doorway, her hair still messy, and an expression that mixed curiosity with caution. Gabriel, as usual, was still deeply asleep on the couch. "Good morning, dear," Clara said with a warm smile. "Did you sleep well?" Sophia merely nodded. The girl always seemed to be on guard, as if any unexpected movement could put her in danger. Clara understood this reaction but felt a pang in her chest at seeing such a young child bearing the weight of so much distrust. "I made some fresh bread and juice. How about having a little before Gabriel wakes up?" Sophia looked at the set table. Although still hesitant, she slowly approached a chair. Clara watched as the girl sat down and picked up a piece of bread, biting it carefully, as if testing the reality of that gesture of kindness. For a few minutes, silence lingered between them, but it was a different silence than before, less tense, more accepting. Clara sat at the table with Sophia, taking a sip of tea. She felt it was time to start learning more about the children, but she knew she had to tread carefully. Sophia was like a delicate flower that only bloomed under the right conditions. "Sophia, would you like to tell me a little more about you and Gabriel?" Clara asked gently without pressure. Sophia paused eating for a moment, her eyes turning to the bread in her hands. There was something in the girl's expression that revealed she was struggling internally, trying to decide whether to trust Clara. Finally, she took a deep breath and, in a low voice, began to speak. "Our parents," she hesitated. "They died almost a year ago. It was an accident. After that, everything became very difficult. We have no one, so I take care of Gabriel." Those few words carried immense weight. Clara could see in the subtext of what Sophia was saying all the pain and responsibility that had fallen on her since then. Losing parents at such a young age was devastating, but being forced to become the sole caregiver for a younger brother was a burden no child should bear. "It must be very difficult for you," Clara said softly and understandingly. Sophia shrugged, but her sad eyes told a different story. "It is, but I have no choice. If I don't take care of him, who will?" The maturity in Sophia's voice moved Clara deeply. She was faced with a child who had been forced to grow up too quickly, shouldering a burden that many adults struggle to bear. "You are doing an amazing job, Sophia," Clara smiled kindly. "Gabriel is very lucky to have you, but you also deserve to be taken care of, you know. You don't have to do everything alone." Sophia looked at Clara for a moment, as if she wanted to believe those words but was unable to let her guard down completely. Trusting someone felt like a luxury she couldn't afford. "I don't want to go to a shelter," Sophia said abruptly, her tone firm. "I've heard they separate families, and I won't let that happen. I won't let anyone take Gabriel away." Clara felt her heart tighten at the determination in the girl's voice. She understood Sophia's fears about shelters, especially given her experiences. The dread of being separated from Gabriel loomed over Sophia like a constant shadow, and Clara knew she had to tread carefully in how she approached the situation. "I promise I won't let that happen, Sophia," Clara assured her, her voice firm yet tender. "You won't go to any shelter, and no one will separate you two as long as you're with me. You are safe." Sophia looked at Clara for a long moment, her eyes searching for any hint that those words might not be true. But all she found was sincerity in the elderly woman's gaze. For the first time, something inside Sophia seemed to relax, although a shadow of uncertainty still lingered. "For now, you can stay here," Clara continued. "It's not much, but it's safe and I can help you." Sophia, still hesitant, nodded lightly but said nothing. Clara knew the girl's distrust wouldn't vanish overnight, and that was okay. She was willing to wait, giving Sophia the time and space she needed to feel secure. At that moment, Gabriel appeared in the doorway, rubbing his sleepy eyes and sporting messy hair. Upon seeing the food on the table, he ran over to Clara with an innocent smile. "Good morning, Gabriel." Clara greeted him enthusiastically as he sat down next to his sister. "Are you hungry?" Gabriel nodded vigorously, and Clara served him another plate while the boy happily dug in. Clara observed Sophia, who was watching her brother with a blend of love and protectiveness. It was clear that Sophia had done everything in her power to shield Gabriel from the harsh realities of their situation. Clara understood that the next step would be delicate. She needed to learn more about what had truly happened to the children's parents without putting pressure on Sophia. Furthermore, she had to devise a genuine solution for both of them, one that would lift them off the streets for good. I was thinking, Clara began softly as she sliced more bread for Gabriel. Perhaps I could help you find a better place to stay or even a job for me. That way, I could look after both of you. What do you think? Sophia's brow furrowed in surprise at the unexpected offer. It was the first time in a long while that someone had extended a gesture beyond mere pity. She looked at Clara, curiosity flickering in her eyes as she tried to grasp what this meant. "Would you really do that?" Sophia asked, her voice a mix of skepticism and hope. "Yes, Sophia, I would," Clara replied with a warm smile. "I've already raised my children, but I still have plenty of love to give. I believe you both need a family just as much as I need you." Sophia paused for a moment, and then, for the first time since Clara had met her, she smiled, a small, shy smile that brought a spark of light to her eyes. I would like that," Sophia said almost in a whisper. As the afternoon settled over the diner, a sense of calm enveloped the space. After days spent on the streets, Sophia and Gabriel finally seemed to relax, even if just a little. Clara watched as they played in the back, Gabriel's laughter echoing joyfully throughout the diner. He appeared to forget, if only momentarily, the burdens he carried. Sophia still held a serious demeanor, but there were moments when her expression softened, especially when Clara spoke to her with that nurturing warmth that made her feel secure. After tidying up the kitchen and preparing for the next day, Clara decided it was time to take a step forward. She sensed that Sophia was carrying more than she revealed, and to truly help her, Clara would need to understand her story fully. With care, she approached the children, who were now sitting on the floor, Gabriel entertained by a small ball that Clara had found in the diner. "Can I join you?" Clara asked gently. Sophia looked up and shrugged, which Clara interpreted as a yes. She settled down next to the girl, who now held the ball that Gabriel had set aside. "Sophia," Clara began, choosing her words with caution, "I know you've been through a lot. I can't imagine what you're feeling, but if you'd like, I'm here to listen. Maybe talking about it will help." Sophia gripped the ball tightly, her body tense as if she had been holding in her feelings for far too long. Clara recognized that the girl wasn't accustomed to having someone willing to listen, someone she could trust. The trust that Sophia had started to place in Clara felt delicate, but Clara knew this was the right moment to reach out. "I know it's tough," Clara continued, taking her time, "and I also know you're incredibly strong, Sophia. But being strong all the time can be exhausting." Sophia lowered her head, her fingers tightening around the ball. A long silence followed before she finally spoke, her voice low, almost a whisper. "After my parents died, everything changed." The simplicity of her words carried a weight that Clara could feel. Sophia was opening a door to a realm of pain and suffering she had long kept shut. "It was a car accident," Sophia continued, avoiding Clara's gaze. "They were coming home at night. Gabriel and I were sleeping when the phone rang. After that, everything went dark." Clara felt her heart ache at Sophia's revelation. She couldn't fathom how devastating it must have been for such a young girl, losing her parents so suddenly and being left to care for her little brother. It was a kind of pain that could shape a person for life. "We lived with an aunt for a while, but she didn't want us. She only kept us there until she could find a reason to send us away." Sophia hesitated, her voice faltering momentarily. "We had no one else." Clara listened intently, remaining silent as Sophia continued, her words seemingly drawn from deep within. "We tried to stay with other people, but no one wanted 2 kids. People always say they want to help, but that's not true. In the end, you're on your own. I knew if I didn't take care of Gabriel, he would end up in a shelter, and I couldn't let that happen." Sophia's gaze remained fixed on the floor, but Clara could see the pain woven into every word. The little girl had shouldered immense responsibility, transforming her into someone with maturity beyond her years. "So you ended up on the street?" Clara asked, her voice heavy with sorrow. Sophia nodded, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. "I tried everything. I stole food when I had no other choice. I begged. I did anything to keep Gabriel from going hungry. He doesn't know everything. I always tried to protect him, but it's hard, very hard." Clara felt her emotions swell. She reached out and gently touched Sophia's shoulder, which surprisingly didn't flinch away. That simple gesture seemed to break down the last barrier that Sophia had erected. "You are incredibly strong, Sophia," Clara said, her voice trembling. "Stronger than many people I know. You did everything you could to care for Gabriel, and that's truly remarkable. But you don't have to bear that burden alone anymore. I'm here for both of you." Clara's words finally seemed to resonate with Sophia in a way nothing else had before. The girl let out a small sob, and for the first time in a long while, she allowed her tears to flow freely. It was as if all the pain, fear, and accumulated exhaustion had finally found a way to escape. With a heavy heart, Clara enveloped Sophia in a gentle embrace as the girl quietly cried on her shoulder. Gabriel, who had been distracted until that moment, stopped playing and watched his sister, sensing the gravity of the moment. He approached quietly, instinctively reaching for Sophia's hand, sensing her need for comfort in that moment. "Everything will be okay," Clara reassured her softly, her voice filled with tenderness. "You won't be alone anymore." As Sophia turned away from Clara, wiping her eyes with the sleeve of her shirt, her sobs gradually subsided. A look of relief washed over her face, as if she had finally permitted herself to break down, if only for a fleeting moment. "Thank you," Sophia murmured, her voice still quivering but sincere. Clara smiled back, feeling a swell of affection and determination rise within her. She recognized the long road ahead. The scars of both Sophia and Gabriel would require time to heal. Yet in that instant, she felt more convinced than ever that bringing these children into her life was the right choice. As night fell again, Clara helped the children settle in the back of the diner for the night. Although Sophia appeared calmer now, there was still much to process. Gabriel, as always, quickly drifted off to sleep beside his sister. Clara, in turn, spent a moment watching the children slumber, her heart heavy with mixed emotions. Sadness for the hardships they had faced, yet also a renewed hope that together they could create something better. The next morning, a light, refreshing breeze flowed through the open diner window. The sun had yet to fully rise, but Clara was already up, preparing breakfast for the children. As she boiled water for tea and sliced fresh bread, her thoughts turned to the difficult decisions ahead. Sophia's revelation from the night before had marked a turning point. Clara knew she had to act quickly to secure a safe future for the siblings. However, the reality was daunting. The diner was not a sustainable home for them. Clara longed to help, to care for Sophia and Gabriel as if they were her own family, but she knew she had to consider what was best for their long-term well-being. When the children awoke, she found them in the small kitchen at the back of the diner. Gabriel, as always, was full of energy, tossing his small ball, while Sophia watched him with a calm yet watchful demeanor. Clara set the table for breakfast, and the three of them gathered together. "How are you today, Sophia?" Clara asked gently. Sophia glanced at Clara, and then at her brother. Clara noticed the invisible weights still resting on the girl's shoulders, but there was a shift in her gaze. Perhaps it was the realization that, at least for now, she and Gabriel were in a safe space. "I'm better," Sophia replied, offering a small smile that didn't quite reach her eyes, but was a sign of progress nonetheless. As they ate, Clara contemplated how to broach the difficult conversation she needed to initiate. She understood that whatever decision she made, Sophia had to be involved in the process. The girl, despite her youth, demonstrated maturity in grasping the gravity of their situation. "Sophia, Gabriel," Clara began thoughtfully, I've been doing a lot of thinking about our next steps. You know I want to help, and I'm ready to do everything I can, but this situation can't last forever. Sophia stopped eating, her eyes locked onto Clara's. Gabriel, however, remained blissfully unaware of the tension brewing around them. What do you mean? Sophia asked, a hint of distrust creeping into her voice. Clara took a steadying breath, trying to remain calm. I want you to be safe, but I know I can't care for you alone indefinitely. My diner is small, and she hesitated, not wanting to alarm the children. I'm not young anymore. I can't guarantee I'll always be here to help, and that worries me. Sophia's expression hardened, a flicker of fear crossing her face as she braced for something dreadful. Do you want to send us to a shelter? Her voice trembled, yet there was a fierce determination within it, ready to protect Gabriel at all costs. Clara shook her head firmly. No, dear, that's not what I want. I promised I wouldn't let that happen, and I intend to keep that promise. But we need to find a better solution, maybe a foster family, or I can help you figure out a way to start over somewhere safer. Sophia fell quiet, clearly processing Clara's words. The fear of being separated from Gabriel loomed large within her, but something in Clara's tone felt different. The prospect of a fresh start was enticing, even as she was uncertain about how it would unfold. I know this must be scary for you, Clara continued gently. But what frightens me the most is the thought of you returning to the situation you escaped. I want to ensure you have a genuine chance to be happy, a life that's more than just about surviving. Sophia glanced at Gabriel, who was now playing with the bread on his plate, blissfully unaware of the weight of their conversation. She had always known difficult decisions lay ahead, but hearing Clara speak made her realize there were more possibilities than merely running away. For the first time in a long while, Sophia allowed herself to consider the potential of trusting someone. What if it goes wrong? She finally broke the silence, her voice shaky. What if we get sent away again, or if people don't like us? Clara reached across the table, gently resting her hand on Sophia's as a gesture of comfort. There are no guarantees in life, Sophia, but I promise you I will do everything in my power to prevent that from happening. I will stand by you, whatever path you choose. You won't face this alone anymore. Sophia inhaled deeply, absorbing each of Clara's words. She understood that trust wasn't something developed overnight, but Clara's unwavering presence and kindness had begun to dismantle the walls she had built over time. I need to think, Sophia said, still hesitant. Of course, Clara replied with understanding. You don't need to decide right now. Just know that I'm here for whatever you need, and that Gabriel is safe with us. Gabriel, oblivious to the complexities of the conversation, turned to Clara and beamed at her with an innocent, carefree smile. Clara's heart ached, realizing how much Sophia had shielded her brother from the harsh realities they faced. Ultimately, the decision rested with Sophia, and Clara recognized that, despite her desire to help, she couldn't force anything. Everything would unfold in its own time. Later that day, Clara resolved to venture into town to address some pressing matters. She needed to gather information about potential support for Sophia and Gabriel, but she wanted to do so without their knowledge. For now, she wished to avoid creating expectations until she had something concrete to offer. As she walked through the streets, her thoughts consumed her, where to find help, and how to ensure that Sophia and Gabriel could remain together. Together and safe, Clara was acutely aware that institutions often fell short of their promises, and that thought troubled her. After hours spent researching social services and charitable organizations, she returned to the diner slightly more informed, but still lacking the answers she desperately sought. The possibility of adopting the children lingered in her mind, but as an older woman running a small business, she understood the challenges that such a commitment would entail. Yet, a flicker of hope ignited within her, a belief that somehow she would discover a solution. When Clara arrived at the diner, she found Sophia in her usual spot, gazing out the window with a distant look. Clara took a seat beside her without uttering a word. They sat in silence for a few moments until Sophia finally broke it. "I want to try," she said, still staring out the window. "I don't know if it will work, but I'm willing to try. I trust you, Clara." Clara felt a surge of emotion at those words. She knew the road ahead would be challenging, but in that moment, she experienced a renewed sense of hope. "We can do this together, Sophia," Clara replied, her smile warm and reassuring. "I promise I won't let you down." In the days that followed, a new and unexpected routine formed for Clara, Sophia, and Gabriel. The diner transformed from merely a workplace into a haven of togetherness, small victories, and the slow rebuilding of lives that had seemed beyond repair just weeks before. Clara upheld her commitment to care for the siblings, with Sophia helping out at the diner while Gabriel played in the back or dashed around the small space. Life began to find a new rhythm. Still, Clara understood that their situation was temporary. Regardless of the bond they were forming, the future remained uncertain. On a Monday morning, while organizing the counter for the early customers, Clara heard the diner's door open. It was an unusual sound, one filled with urgency. Turning around, she saw Sophia holding Gabriel's hand, worry etched across her face. "Clara, can we talk to you?" Sophia asked, her voice tense. "Of course, dear," Clara replied, feeling a knot of apprehension in her stomach. "What's wrong?" Sophia guided Gabriel to sit at the table as Clara approached. "We were coming back from the market," she began, pausing briefly. "We saw a woman in the alley nearby. She looked really bad, dirty, and in torn clothes. Gabriel got scared, but I felt like I needed to talk to her." Clara leaned in, intrigued. She knew Sophia had a kind heart, but she also recognized the mistrust that had formed from her experiences on the streets. The fact that Sophia felt compelled to reach out to a stranger in distress spoke volumes about her compassion. "And what happened next?" Clara inquired, her tone a mix of curiosity and concern. Sophia took a deep breath, her gaze steady but uncertain. "I asked her if she needed help. At first, she didn't say anything, just cried. Then she said," Sophia hesitated, as if recalling the woman's words, "that she didn't know what to do anymore, that she was all alone in the world, with no family or friends, just like us." Clara's chest tightened at that revelation. It was painful to think about how many others faced similar harsh realities. While she admired Sophia's instinct to help, she wondered how far that kindness would extend. Encouragingly, she prompted, "What did you do next?" "I brought her here," Sophia confessed, her gaze dropping as if bracing for a negative reaction. Before Clara could respond, the kitchen door swung open and a frail, disheveled figure stumbled in. It was a woman, her hair unkempt and despair evident on her face. Her clothes were torn and filthy, and she struggled to remain upright. Clara froze for a moment, taken aback by the unexpected arrival. I didn't know what to do," the woman stammered, her voice quaking and muffled. "Your daughter, she helped me, and I have nowhere to go. I'm sorry for barging in like this." Clara turned to Sophia, who watched her intently, waiting for her response. A wave of emotions washed over Clara: surprise, compassion, and profound sadness at the woman's plight. Something about her resonated deeply within Clara, reminding her of times when she felt equally lost. "You are safe here," Clara said softly, stepping closer to the woman and offering her a seat. "We will help you. Please sit down, have some water, and let's talk." The woman hesitated, then accepted the offer, lowering herself into a chair with visible effort. Her eyes brimmed with tears, and her trembling hands gripped the edge of the table as if seeking support. Clara fetched a glass of water, and the woman drank eagerly. "What is your name?" Clara asked, employing the same gentle tone she used with Sophia and Gabriel. "Esther," the woman replied, her voice barely above a whisper. "And how did you end up here, Esther?" Clara asked, taking care to create a comfortable space for her to share her story. Esther gazed at the glass in her hands, struggling to articulate her thoughts. I had a life, a family," she began, her voice wavering. "But I lost everything. My husband died and I didn't know how to cope. I got caught up in the wrong things, lost my home, and now I'm all alone. I have no one left." Clara felt her heart clench in empathy. Esther's story mirrored that of Sophia and Gabriel, a devastating loss followed by a dizzying fall into despair. "I understand what you're going through," Clara said sincerely. "Not exactly the same, but I too have lost someone dear to me, and I know how hard it is to find your way back when everything feels lost." Esther nodded, tears streaming down her face. Finally, Sophia spoke up, her voice steady. "Clara helped me when I was lost. She gave us a safe place, and I believe she can help you too." Clara looked at Sophia, both surprised and touched by her words. In that moment, the usual mistrust Sophia held seemed to fade away. There was something different in her demeanor, as if the experience of receiving help had given her a newfound perspective on the world. "I can't do much," Clara said cautiously, turning to Esther. "But I can offer you a warm meal, a bath, and a place to rest for now. Let's see how we can help you get back on your feet." Esther looked at Clara, her eyes filled with gratitude, as if she couldn't quite believe the kindness being offered. Clara felt a rush of compassion and determination. Helping Sophia and Gabriel had already given her life a renewed sense of purpose, and now with Esther, it seemed fate was continuing
Clara provided
to bring
Esther
those in
with a
need
bath,
to her door, fresh clothes, and a hearty meal. Gradually, Esther began to share bits of her life and the struggles she had faced. Over the next few days, while Clara, Sophia, and Gabriel maintained their routine, Esther observed from a distance, as if trying to find her place in a world that felt unfamiliar. The warmth of their kindness unsettled her, making her feel unworthy of such generosity. She often murmured in a choked voice that she was just passing through, but Clara sensed that Esther needed more than a temporary solution. There was a deep wound within her that had yet to be fully revealed, and Clara felt it was only a matter of time before the truth emerged. One overcast afternoon, Clara and Esther found themselves alone in the diner. Sophia and Gabriel had gone for a walk, leaving a silence between the two that was comfortable yet heavy with unspoken tension. Clara decided it was time to address the weight that lingered in the air. "Esther," she began, her voice soft and maternal, "I know you've been carrying a lot of pain, and I understand it's not easy to talk about. But sometimes sharing our stories helps lighten the load." Esther looked at Clara, her eyes deep and weary, as if teetering on the edge of an emotional abyss. She opened her mouth to respond but hesitated, as if the words were trapped inside her. "I don't know if I can talk about it," Esther whispered, her voice thick with emotion. Clara leaned in, gently taking Esther's hands in hers. Their eyes met, creating a silent understanding, an invitation for Esther to share, but without pressure. "When I lost my husband, I thought my life was over," Clara said, breaking the silence. "I was left alone with my children, unsure of what to do next. It took me a long time to allow myself to live again, but I learned that accepting help isn't a sign of weakness, it's a step toward healing." Esther squeezed Clara's hands, tears welling in her eyes. She took a deep breath, gathering the courage to voice the torment that had haunted her. "I had a family too," she began, her voice trembling. "I had a husband I loved and a daughter." A chill raced down Clara's spine at the mention of a daughter. Esther had spoken of her husband before, but never of a child. The silence that followed was thick, heavy with the weight of Esther's revelation. "What happened to your daughter?" Clara asked cautiously. Esther looked down, unable to maintain Clara's gaze. "She was taken from me," she said, her voice faltering as tears began to flow. "After my husband died, I lost myself. I fell into a cycle of addiction, made terrible choices, And then a social worker came and took my daughter away. I never saw her again." Clara fell silent, stunned by the revelation. The pieces of Esther's story began to align, filling her with dread, as if she already knew the painful direction this was heading. "What was your daughter's name?" Clara asked, her voice trembling as she struggled to remain calm. Esther sobbed uncontrollably, struggling to respond. Finally, between her tears, she murmured, "Sophia. Her name is Sophia." Clara felt the ground give way beneath her. Everything around her seemed to freeze, the sound of Esther's cries echoing in her mind. Sophia? Could it be? The coincidences were too significant to ignore. "Esther," Clara began, her voice almost inaudible, "the Sophia you lost. How old was she when she was taken?" "She was 3 years old," Esther replied, her eyes filled with pain. "She had brown hair. I never forgot her. Never," Esther sobbed. "But I know she must hate me now. She must think I abandoned her." Clara struggled to catch her breath, the information swirling in her mind. She knew she needed to uncover the truth, but she couldn't drop this bombshell on Esther or Sophia all at once. The terrifying possibility that Sophia, the girl Clara had taken in, might be Esther's lost daughter weighed heavily on her heart, but it also felt like a chance for everything to change. "Esther, dear," Clara said, struggling to stay calm. "There's something I need to investigate, but don't worry, I'm with you." Esther looked at Clara, confusion evident on her face, but there was enough trust in her eyes to hold back any questions. Clara realized she would need time to process this shocking discovery, and more importantly, a way to confirm her suspicions without inflicting further pain. Deep down, Clara already sensed the truth. Esther's anguish, Sophia's story, it all made sense now. She felt a mix of emotions, joy at the prospect of a possible reunion between mother and daughter, but also fear over how Sophia would react to the truth. After all, the girl had spent years believing her mother had abandoned her. When Sophia and Gabriel returned from their walk, Clara observed them with new eyes. Sophia's gaze, her protectiveness over Gabriel, everything took on new meaning. Clara knew she needed to find out for sure, but the weight of her discovery hung heavy in her heart. She carefully considered how to approach the situation. She couldn't just tell Sophia without absolute certainty. First, she decided to seek out old records that might confirm whether Esther was indeed Sophia's mother. Yet, even as she sought concrete answers, Clara's heart whispered the truth. One afternoon, while Clara prepared dinner in the kitchen, Esther approached her. They had spent the past few days in heavy silence, with Esther lost in her thoughts and Clara searching for the right moment to reveal her discovery. "Clara," Esther said, her voice soft yet determined, "I know I made terrible choices in the past, and I lost my daughter because of my own faults. But do you think there's still a chance she could forgive me, that I could find her someday?" Clara's heart ached at Esther's words, laden with guilt and regret, but also with a flicker of hope, as if she was beginning to believe there could be a path to reconciliation. Taking a deep breath, Clara struggled to maintain her composure. She knew she couldn't delay the truth much longer. "Esther," she began, her voice trembling, "I think you need to know something. There's a very real possibility that your daughter is closer to you than you think." Esther's expression shifted to confusion, her brow furrowing as she tried to grasp Clara's meaning. "What do you mean?" she asked, her voice wavering. Clara locked eyes with Esther, feeling the weight of the moment. "The Sophia who is here with us, she might be your daughter." Esther froze, Clara's words hitting her like a shockwave. Her face went pale, and for a moment, she seemed unable to process what she had just heard. "What?" she whispered, nearly voiceless. "It can't be." Clara placed a comforting hand over Esther's. "There are many coincidences, Esther, the dates, the age, the name. Everything seems to fit. I believe, deep down, you already suspected something like this was possible. But we need to be sure, and we must tread carefully with Sophia. She had endured so much, and if this was truly the case, Accepting it would be incredibly difficult for her. Esther was in shock, tears streaming down her face as she tried to absorb Clara's words. The thought that her daughter, lost for so long, was now within reach felt like both a blessing and a crushing weight. She understood that Sophia might not want to see her, that she might harbor resentment for everything that had transpired, and that terrified her. "What if she rejects me?" Esther asked Clara, her voice trembling with fear. "What if she never wants to see me again?" Clara squeezed Esther's hand tightly. "You must give her time, Esther. Sophia has been incredibly strong, but she's also been deeply hurt. She needs time to process everything, and most importantly, she needs to know the truth. That is something you can give her." Just then, Sophia walked into the diner with Gabriel. The conversation between the two women abruptly stopped, and Clara felt her stomach churn. The moment she had dreaded was upon them. She could no longer keep this secret hidden. "Sophia," Clara called, forcing a calmness into her voice, "can we talk for a moment?" Sophia looked at Clara, sensing the tension in the air, and frowned, clearly suspicious. She approached slowly, Gabriel at her side, oblivious to the unfolding situation. "Sure, Clara, what's up?" Sophia asked, her tone cautious. Clara turned to Esther, who appeared visibly nervous, before looking back at Sophia. "There's something you need to know, dear, something very important about your past, about your mother." Sophia froze at the mention of mother. Distrust filled her eyes, and she took a step back, bracing herself for something terrible. "What do you mean?" she asked, her voice rising in fear and disbelief. Clara took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the words she was about to utter. "The woman here with us, Esther," she hesitated for a moment, but she knew the time for postponement had passed. "There's a strong possibility that Esther is your mother." The words lingered in the air, stretching time into an eternity. Sophia stood motionless, her eyes wide as she tried to comprehend what she had just heard. She glanced at Esther, who was quietly crying, then back at Clara. "No," Sophia murmured, shaking her head. This can't be true. She left me. She never came back for me. How can she be my mother?" Esther, her voice shaking, finally spoke. "Sophia, I never wanted to leave you. Never. I got lost, I made mistakes, and they took you away from me. But not for a single day did I stop loving you. I never stopped thinking about you." Further, tears spilling down her cheeks as she shook her head in denial. "You abandoned me," she shouted, her voice heavy with pain. "I was alone. I took care of Gabriel all by myself, and you weren't there." Her words pierced both Esther and Clara, who stood by in stunned silence. Esther sobbed, unable to hold back her grief. "I'm so sorry, my daughter," Esther cried. "I know you will never forgive me, and I deserve that. But please believe me when I say that I never wanted it to end up like this." Sophia looked at her mother, a mix of anger and sadness etched on her face. She felt shattered, and every word from Esther seemed to deepen her wounds. Finally, unable to endure the weight of the moment, Sophia turned and fled the diner, with Gabriel trailing behind her, confused. Clara stood up to follow, but Esther held her back, gripping her arm firmly. "Give her time," Esther whispered, her voice laced with pain. "She needs time." Clara nodded. Although her heart was breaking at the sight of Sophia running away, she knew Esther was right. Sophia would need time to process everything, to confront the anger and sorrow she had carried for so long. As night descended over the diner, Clara sat beside Esther, who wept silently, her heart aching from the chasm that still lay between her and her daughter. Yet, amid the pain, a thread of hope remained, a hope that, given time, the love Esther held for Sophia could heal the wounds caused by years of separation. The days following the revelation of Esther's identity as Sophia's mother were challenging for everyone. Sophia and Gabriel barely exchanged words, and when they did, it was only brief and cautious. Sophia isolated herself, spending hours alone in a corner of the diner or in her makeshift room, clearly struggling with the tumult of emotions swirling within her. Clara, ever patient, gave Sophia space, but her heart ached at witnessing the girl's solitude. Esther, too, was deeply affected. One afternoon, as Clara brewed coffee, Sophia quietly approached and took a seat at the table. Her eyes were red and swollen from crying, and she looked utterly exhausted, as if she hadn't slept in days. "Clara," Sophia began, her voice barely above a whisper, "I don't know what to do." Clara set a cup of tea in front of her and sat beside her, ready to listen. "It's not easy, dear, when we have to face so much pain, especially from someone we love. Sometimes it can feel like there's no escape," Clara said gently, her voice filled with compassion. Sophia stared at the tea without touching it. "I can't understand why she left me. Even after everything she said, it still hurts too much." Clara took a deep breath, searching for the right words to help her navigate her feelings. "What you're feeling, Sophia, is completely natural. You felt abandoned for so long, and that pain won't just vanish. But I can assure you, despite everything, your mother's love never disappeared. Esther made mistakes, and she carries that guilt with her every day. If you allow it, perhaps there's a way for you to heal those wounds together." Sophia met Clara's gaze, confusion and sadness reflected in her eyes. "I don't know if I can forgive her," she said softly. Clara took Sophia's hand, offering her comfort. "Forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting what happened or dismissing your pain. It's about giving yourself a chance to move forward, to live without the weight of anger. And I truly believe that, with time, you can find that peace." Sophia remained silent, mulling over Clara's words. While the concept of forgiveness felt distant, she began to sense that there might be a possibility for healing. But it would be a long and arduous journey. That night, when Clara closed the diner, she found Esther sitting in silence, her gaze fixed on the window, as if awaiting something that might never arrive. Clara approached and settled beside her. "She's starting to process everything," Clara said, attempting to infuse a bit of hope into the atmosphere. Esther sighed, tears brimming in her eyes. "I don't know if she will ever forgive me," she replied, her voice trembling with emotion. Clara placed her hand on Esther's shoulder, providing silent support. "Forgiveness takes time." "Esther, right now, your role is to be there for her. Show that you're willing to wait and fight for her forgiveness. Don't give up." Esther nodded slowly, recognizing the truth in Clara's words. She understood that she couldn't force Sophia to accept her, but she was committed to proving her love was genuine. As the days passed, the tension between Sophia and Esther persisted, yet small signs of change began to surface. Although still distant, Sophia occasionally looked at her mother with a little less anger in her eyes. It wasn't forgiveness just yet, but it was a tentative step toward understanding. Clara, always wise and patient, observed these small strides with a mix of caution and hope. She knew that every little advancement mattered and was prepared to help both women reconcile, no matter how long it took. One morning, while Clara was brewing coffee, she heard Sophia call out to her. "Clara, I want to talk to her," the girl said, her voice low but firm. Clara felt a rush of surprise and relief. She had anticipated this moment, but didn't expect it to come so soon. "Of course, dear, I'll get Esther." When Esther arrived, her heart raced at the sight of Sophia waiting for her. Fear and hope mingled in Sophia's expression. Clara stepped back to give them space, knowing this was a moment for mother and daughter to navigate on their own. "I don't know if I'm ready to forgive you," Sophia began, her eyes glistening with tears, "but I want to understand what happened. Why didn't you come for me?" Esther fought to keep her composure. Although Sophia's words were painful, they marked a crucial first step toward the reconciliation she desperately wanted. "I wanted to come for you, Sophia. Every day, you were in my thoughts, but I was trapped in a cycle of self-destruction. I made poor choices, fell into addiction, and that kept me from being the mother you needed. But I never stopped loving you, not for a moment. Sophia lowered her gaze, trying to process her mother's admission. She realized that her pain wouldn't vanish easily, yet for the first time, she saw that Esther had suffered too, that her absence was not a choice but a tragic inability. "I hated you for so long," Sophia confessed, her voice trembling. "But now, seeing you like this, I don't know what to feel anymore. It just hurts." Esther inched closer, wanting to reassure her daughter without overwhelming her, and took her hands gently. "I understand, my dear. I know the pain is still fresh, and nothing I say can erase what you went through. But if you give me just one chance, I promise to be the mother you always deserved." As Sophia gazed into Esther's eyes, she noticed something new, a mixture of vulnerability, regret, and love. This love, though flawed in the past, now felt genuine and ready for a second chance. I want to try," Sophia said, tears streaming down her face. "I don't know how, but I want to try." Esther embraced Sophia gently, allowing her daughter to lead the way. Slowly, Sophia returned the hug, feeling the warmth of the mother she thought she had lost forever. They cried together, enveloped in each other's arms, while Clara watched from a distance, tears of joy in her eyes. As time went on, Clara's diner became a sanctuary for this unlikely family. Day by day, Sophia and Esther worked to rebuild their relationship with patience and care. Clara remained a steadfast pillar of support, guiding them with her wisdom and unconditional love. Meanwhile, Gabriel, unaware of the emotional complexities surrounding him, grew up happy and secure, embraced by a family that cherished him. Slowly but surely, Sophia's wounds began to heal. The journey was long and fraught with challenges, but gradually, the love between mother and daughter blossomed anew. Clara knew she had played a crucial role in nurturing the seeds of this beautiful relationship. Now, in every laugh from Gabriel and every heartfelt conversation between Sophia and Esther, Clara witnessed the power of reconciliation, the strength of forgiveness, and the hope that can emerge even from the most wounded hearts. The conclusion of this journey brought not only healing for a mother and daughter, but also a fresh start for their entire family. In the cozy warmth of that small diner, the cycle of pain and loss gave way to a new beginning, one filled with love, hope, and above all, happiness. Don't forget to turn on the notification bell to be the first to receive the next video. Share it with your friends and check out the video on the final screen. You won't be disappointed.